first thing was assessment went a little wrong in my view. That yes, the government should have taken some steps. RBI should have been prepared the economy for facing a problem whose contours are still not known. That was the first problem that I thought.
So basically, the fundamental point that exists is that the risk never disappears. It only moves from one place to the other. Either the government bears it, or the government bears it through the RBI, or the general public bears it, eventually the taxpayer.
Exactly, that's the point. Pension system in the country for the government sector is a classic example of a welfarist society. Now the question is that this idea of this so-called welfarism has been expanded in a way that I often wonder is it really sustainable? Aadhaar was not supposed to protect you. Aadhaar was only supposed to give you a kind of an identity that who you are, where do you live, to expect Aadhaar to provide protection.
AKB has India built a world-class welfare delivery machine rather than building a world-class welfare state?
I think we have built a decent welfare delivery machine, particularly through cash. I don't think we have been able to build a welfare state.
Hello and welcome to Macro Matters, Business Standards Fortnightly podcast. I am Ankur Bhardwaj and we are recording on Thursday, August 20, 2026. Here is a simple question. What does the Indian state owe you, the citizen? Food when you cannot afford it, a job when work disappears, healthcare when you fall seriously ill, income in old age, or simply the opportunity to fend for yourself? Over the years, India has tried almost every model of welfare: provide, subsidize, guarantee, insure, transfer cash, and build household assets and public infrastructure. And the state has become remarkably good at reaching people directly. But is reaching you the same as protecting you? Does the state owe you a benefit, or does it owe you security? Joining me once again is A.K. Bhattacharya, one of India's foremost commentators on economics and public policy. AKB, welcome back to Macro Matters.
Thank you, Ankur, for having me here.
AKB, I want to begin with something that doesn't seem to have anything in relation to welfare. In June, the RBI created a special dollar-rupee swap facility linked to fresh 3 to 5 year FCNRB deposits. The economics were unusually attractive for banks. Bring eligible foreign currency to the RBI, receive rupees, and reverse the transaction later under a swap whose two legs are at par. The response was extraordinary. By August 13, fresh FCNRB deposits under the facility had reportedly reached $52.3 billion. It included eligible ECB and OFCB channels. The broader inflow was around $56.8 billion. Then the RBI advanced the qualifying deadline from September 30 to August 31, with eligible swaps executable until September 11. This was not a reserve crisis. India had foreign exchange reserves of roughly $682 billion at the end of May. The facility was better understood as additional balance of payments insurance amid West Asia risks, energy price uncertainty, volatile capital flows, and portfolio outflows. The RBI has said the early change followed the encouraging response and strong inflows. It has not said that the facility was cut short because it had become too expensive. But the episode raises a useful economic question. When policy makes a private risk disappear from one balance sheet, where does that risk actually go? AKB, the RBI wanted dollars. It offered banks in India a very attractive deal, and as a result of it, more than $50 billion arrived. And then it said, this is enough. What do you think happened here?
Well, there are many things that were a little puzzling. Number one, the initial assessment that India has got a balance of payment deficit that is large or wide enough to warrant this kind of a response, that you raise some resources. Now, even when that plan was announced, I do recall there were some voices within the government which had expressed surprise that isn't this a bit of an overreaction? Are you not panicking a bit too early? In a sense that you still were sitting on over $600 billion or 590 or so, 580 billion dollar of reserves, and sending out that kind of a signal will probably could have caused a bigger panic reaction. So I think that was first thing was assessment went a little wrong in my view. That yes, the government should have taken some steps. RBI should have been prepared the economy for facing a problem whose contours are still not known. That was the first problem that I thought. The second problem was executing the policy. The point that you mentioned about transferring, the responsibility and the risks to the system, to the government. So you allowed leverage, and some banks, the country's largest bank, went in for a leverage of over 19%. So now that, to my mind, is something that the policymakers should have anticipated and prevented. And the third thing was the manner in which it was stopped. So, and as many people in this country, they point out that we must follow the chronology. Now, what is the chronology here? There was a monetary policies review that took place, and after that monetary policy review, in the first week of August, the RBI governor said everything is fine, the FCNRB policy will go on, everything is hunky dory, there's no problem.
So basically,
7 days later, you have said that 31st of August is the last date. This is what creates some discomfort, dissonance, and you start wondering whether it's being managed as astutely and prudently as you would like it to be.
What catches people's attention is that it was almost like a 1991 kind of a reaction to a problem which was, we were not in a 1991 like situation.
Not even to a 2013 reaction.
Yeah.
You're talking about 1991, a similar scheme was announced in 2013. Now, what was our current account deficit at that time? 4.3% of fiscal deficit. The current account deficit, 4.3% of GDP.
True.
Now, today, it is less than 2%. So
one can argue about it, but the RBI was basically trying to say we're buying insurance for the economy by bringing in these extra dollars. Now, these deposits have an inherent exchange rate risk which banks tend to bear. This exchange rate risk was shifted to the RBI's balance sheet. So basically, but the risk doesn't really disappear. It has moved on to the public, because this is eventually the insurance cost is going to be borne by public, because it has moved to the RBI now.
See what happens when the RBI bears the risk. What happens is that RBI has to finance it in some ways. Now, what does it lead to? It essentially means the government is subsidizing it. Why? Because the RBI does not have to. Probably the RBI is transferring or surplus will be that much less. So it is essentially government does not get that much money from RBI. So it's not a very happy situation to be in.
But we've seen a similar situation earlier with sovereign gold bonds. The risk was again shifted to the general public, which is going to be rather expensive, and the government had to cut short the scheme.
Sovereign gold bond scheme was slightly different. I'll tell you why. Government was betting on gold prices not skyrocketing the way it did.
Yes.
So when 2015 the scheme was announced, and it was anticipated that the gold prices will remain by and large range bound. Now what we saw was they spurted, and as they spurted by 2024, it became difficult to manage. So I think it was once again a scheme which was trying to transfer the risks and uncertainties of the system, the people to the government again. You know.
You know, so basically, the fundamental point that exists is that the risk never disappears. It only moves from one place to the other. Either the government bears it, or the government bears it through the RBI, or the general public bears it, eventually the taxpayer.
Exactly. That's the point. That ultimately, who pays the price? It is the taxpayer, the citizen, and the people of this country. Because remember, even the taxpayer is a limited, how many people pay taxes in India? I mean, direct taxes. Now, the question is that the citizens of this country pay the price because that much money is less available for developmental projects.
So that brings me to the central topic of today's podcast, which is welfare. Now, it may appear welfare is not related to what we discussed earlier, but it surely is related to the concept of risk and who actually bears that risk. Now, let's assume there is a 35-year-old man, he loses his job. Is it the risk that he's going to bear it himself, or is the society or the state going to carry some of this burden? So, and that would be answered by a fundamental question. What does the Indian state actually owe the citizen?
Well, I think in a country like India, where inequality is quite sharp, your poverty level may have come down. You cannot dispute the idea of providing any form of social or economic security. The question is, how do you deliver that? Do you deliver it by creating a system that enhances and sustains the people's ability to withstand shocks, or is it done by providing ameliorative alleviation, essentially paying them cash?
But we've never had a single welfare model in our independent history.
Well, I think in that sense, yes. But I think we did have food security schemes. The rationing thing, 1971 onwards, we have been having a food security, food ration system. What else is that? It is essentially a
But we've
welfare
had,
system.
kind of different instruments layered on top of each other. So basically, the state would provide, it would also subsidize, it would also guarantee, it would also insure, and in some cases, it would just build. So let's say in the case of healthcare, it might just insure the risk, but not provide you healthcare in general. So there hasn't really been a
I
clean
agree
model.
with you. It's like, do you want to build roads, build hospitals, build educational institutions? I think that's true welfareism. I mean, in a sense, why did the government build the IITs and the IIMs? I think that is part of overall government's welfarist approach.
So we need to probably ask, what does the Indian state owe the citizen? Is it something basic sustenance? Is it equality of opportunity? Is it something grander? What is it that the state expects to provide to the citizen? Isn't that the fundamental question here?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on this. I think I would say that in many ways, what did the reforms of 1991 do? It allowed the people to exercise their choices. And I think those choices could be exercised only if a certain objective conditions prevail. And that's what those reforms did and tried to do at least. Now, whether they led to their desired goals is a matter of debate.
So, for example, let's take employment. If a person in the labor force loses his employment, does he carry the risk individually? What about the family's risk? Or is the labor market supposed to provide some solution? What about the state ensuring some basic minimum protection to this labor
Well,
force?
you have the labor laws in place which gives you that if a person is retrenched, he gets 3 months retrenchment pay. So it may not be the kind of social security that you need in a developing society like ours, but there are at least some laws which provide that kind of a comfort. But would you call that really welfarism? No, I don't think so. These are all social security networks. Now, what is a pension system in this country? Pension system in the country for the government sector is a classic example of a welfarist society. That a person who works for 25 years till 60 years of age, if he is in the government, he gets a pension that, according to some committees, the cost of that is 21% of his salary.
Yes.
Now that is increased now. Now it is 50% for many people. So I think the salaries of the pension system is another case where you have a welfarist system. So you have got food, you have got salaries. It should be provided not just to the government employees, but it should be there in the private sector also. Why should not a private sector person have the same social security benefits? Why you have got EPF, but the EPF does not provide you much. There's a laughable amount of a pension that is given to an EPF member,
Yes.
and that too was started in 1995.
So,
So there's a problem there.
AKB, did we ever consciously design a welfare state like the European countries might have done? Or did we just accumulate a bunch of schemes, one on top of the other, and we landed where we are today?
There was no grand design in this. There was this idea that we will be a mixed economy, and a mixed economy meant that you have both the public sector, the government sector, and the private sector operating with similar equal opportunities. Now, I think there was no conscious plan to create a welfare state. And by 1991, I think, given the state's or the country's economic stress, the idea of a welfare state did not really make its presence. What happened was, for a short period of 10 years, from 2004 to 2014, you did see a change in the government's approach to welfarism.
I will come to that.
Okay.
I will come to that.
Yeah.
But in whatever has happened in these 80 years, there really hasn't been a communication of a minimum security to what citizenship brings to you or provides a citizen. So, or to put it differently, the state doesn't seem to have articulated a floor below which it will not allow any citizen to fall.
Well, I mean, what is a poverty level? A poverty level essentially says that if you do not have X amount of calories in a day or in a month, you are considered poor. Now, if you are that poor, then you get certain benefits. What are the benefits? You get free ration, you get access to basic education facilities. Now, the question is that this idea of this so-called welfarism has been expanded in a way that I often wonder that is it really sustainable?
Because this is the other side of the coin, this is the other side of the argument, which says that a comprehensive welfare state at this level of per capita income is not sustainable. What do you make of that argument?
I think it is a big challenge. I would not say it is unsustainable, but I would say that it requires a shift in the government's policy approach, which right now is not there. We are following a mixed economy approach where we are wary of privatizing. We are still promoting public sector. We want the private sector to have a public sector partnership. So it's a mixed approach in everything that we do.
Now, let's say the state decides that it is going to help. The next question would obviously be, who is it that it is going to help? And what is this person? Is this person a beneficiary of the government's largesse, or is this a person, a citizen demanding his rights from the government?
As I said, that this rights thing came much later in our country. As I said, that uh, food as a matter of right, education as a matter of right, employment as a matter of right, even information as a matter of right came from 2004 to 2014. That, to my mind, is a period of different schemes that conferred on India's citizens the right to demand these things under legislated legislation.
So, what is the more powerful idea in welfare, according to you? Is it universality or is it targeting?
I think it's targeting, particularly in a country like India. Targeting is very important, which unfortunately is not being done very well right now. Because if you're not targeting it well, now, for example, take the case of a very successful scheme called PM Kisan. Now, you give an amount of 6,000 rupees per year to all farmers, but the proof is there of landholding.
Exactly.
Now the question is that what happens to the farmer who doesn't have a piece of land in his name or her
What is
name?
actually tilling it?
Who is tilling it? So our welfare schemes are also geared to benefit those who already have a piece of land.
So fair. Targeting can help you target.
So why not the same PM Kisan be given to the farmer who is tilling the land?
But I understand that resources are scarce, so you go for targeting, and this can help you use those limited resources in a better way. But it also introduces a risk. What if the state itself misses the mark and the person who needs the protection the most falls out of the system? How do we deal with this trade-off then?
No, I think it is a very, very difficult trade-off. But my reading is that if you provide a basic sustenance level welfarist measures to protect such people who need them, I don't think it is not entirely feasible. You can frame. So the problem arises when you want to give free food and you give it to everybody. Anybody who is part of the food ration system, he gets free food. Now that, to my mind, is a problem, particularly in a country where that much food security is necessary. But is it really necessary to everybody? So the selective approach is very important. Targeted approach that you mentioned is very important. And I think we should not underestimate also the importance of a rights-based system.
We moved to which in 2004 to a phase where we started providing our citizens claims or rights based on certain laws. So the first could be the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, which you provides you a statutory claim to work. Then there is the right to education or right to education or the National Food Security Act. So has this phase of making people entitled citizens rather than beneficiaries of government largesse, has this taken hold in the country now?
Well, I think they still remain beneficiaries. I don't know whether they become entitled citizens as a result. They're still treating as beneficiaries. Remember that when you get free food, even though you are not actually the poorest of the poor, it is almost works like a cash transfer. Because let us say you are a food ration card holder, you actually don't need that food, grain. You go there, you buy it, and right there are instances which have been reported, which has been their studies. That person actually doesn't need 35 kg of food grain every month. That is sold in the market and that becomes cash. So, but then they become beneficiaries. They don't become a kind of a citizen whose rights have been protected.
If you were to answer it in, let's say, a line or two, AKB, has the Indian welfare state shifted from right holders to beneficiaries?
I don't think they have shifted. Please remember that we have modified those rights-based laws to provide benefits. Take the classic case of National Food Security Act. The free food scheme is operating under National Food Security Act. So I don't think they shifted, but they moved into that from one phase to another phase.
So let's say whether the philosophy for the Indian state has changed or not, but one thing happened after 2014, especially, is the arrival of JAM, DBT, and Aadhaar, and we moved to a completely new phase of providing welfare to the Indian state. How transformative do you think that has been?
It was without that, I don't think this rights-based system could have been introduced, nor could the rights-based system be transformed into a beneficiary system without the so-called jam trinity. You had the mobile phone, the Aadhaar, and the bank account. So these are the three were very, very important elements in the entire journey of providing welfare to people, even though we did not continue with an approach that you give people more rights.
And it kind of solves, or to a large extent, the one of the oldest problems of the Indian state, famously identified by Rajiv Gandhi in the 1980s. We send a rupee, and only this much paise reaches the beneficiary. So, but in addition to that, isn't there also a philosophical point that can be made in support of transferring cash? Why should the state decide for the citizen? Why can't he be just given his purchasing power and he can use that cash?
No, I think that will be simplifying the problem. I think if you want to transfer cash to people who need them, it is not a bad idea, particularly if that cash is transferred to the woman member of the family. Now, there were states where these cash transfers were not happening to the male member of the family. They were going to the woman member of the
Yes.
family, which is also a way of social empowerment of women.
Yes.
So I think I think there is a lot to be said in favor of a cash transfer scheme. Apart from leakages being plugged, it also provides choices to people. Now, there was a phase when instead of let us say giving them cash, you say, if you have a daughter in the family going to school, Bihar is the classic example, you give them a cycle
Yes.
to go to school. Now, it's fine, excellent idea, but what if that family has a cycle, doesn't need another cycle? So, will it be more empowered if the government gives it a choice by giving them cash and say, you decide, as long as you use it for the benefit of your of the family and your meeting your development needs, it's fine, acceptable.
But this technology has surely solved an age-old problem, but hasn't it introduced a new kind of a vulnerability here? Because at the last mile, you may have authentication failure.
The digital problem is there. I am not.
So
denying that
basically,
at all.
old leakages may have been replaced by new forms of exclusion.
But I think the spread or the number of such leakages will be less. There will be leakages, and there are old people, there are workers whose hand fingerprints will not match with what the Aadhaar picture will have. So there are problems. There's no doubt about it. But then, is it better than only 15% of money going to the beneficiary? So I would say that a digital certification process in today's age and world is an acceptable solution, provided technology is constantly being updated, used to plug any gaps or loopholes.
Critics might argue that tech like Aadhaar may have made the state much better at identifying you, but it hasn't really helped in protecting you.
Aadhaar was not supposed to protect you. Aadhaar was only supposed to give you a kind of an identity that who you are, where do you live. So I think to expect Aadhaar to provide protection is not the right type of expectation from it. The protection has to come from the government policies, protection against uncertainties. So I don't. Aadhaar is an instrument, and so far it has worked as an excellent instrument for benefit transfer.
So, perhaps the government may have been looking at it a little wrongly. Your capacity to deliver a certain benefit may have increased manifold, but that doesn't really translate into social security or social capacity. So you're not just supposed to transfer benefit at a particular moment, but you're supposed to also create capacity in the society to be able to solve those problems. And this may kind of bypass that original requirement.
Well, there is a danger there. I mean, I agree with you. There is a danger there that if you are obsessed or far too focused on just cash transfer, there is a danger that you will not be able to address this basic need of social security. And which is why, which we discussed a little while ago, that you need a proper, well structured social security system, which will not just cover only right now, only the government system has it. And as a matter of fact, those who joined the government after 2004 they don't even have that. So I think it is very important that the social security system needs to be strengthened and made countrywide. Unless you do that, these kind of small schemes like the PM Kisan, free food grain, they do not really serve the larger need of providing social security. They only provide welfare to people in certain small segments.
But you can DBT cash, pat yourself on the back, nicely done, not much leakage. But how do you DBT a doctor? So there could be three kinds of, or maybe more kinds of problems. I need some cash. I need some benefit immediately, so you transfer some cash. Or there could be the second kind of problem wherein I have some individual risk. Or you insure it through, let's say, health insurance, state-provided health insurance. But what about the third kind of risk? I need a school. I need a bus service.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And that's where the government has to play a larger role. Because the government cannot believe that its job is only to undertake cash transfer. It also needs to provide the basic amenities, the basic necessities for leading a decent life wherever you are. I mean, which means building roads, which means building schools, building hospitals, all that. So you cannot.
And I'm not arguing against providing these benefits. For example, a toilet created in a household has real life consequences. It has benefits for the entire family.
Yes.
A roof over your head, an LPG cylinder to a family. All these are necessary benefits. But maybe those beneficiaries can argue that the Indian state has come and helped us in a more concrete way rather than a more abstract way. But there is a flip side to this argument. And people might say, when you create these rights and entitlements, the political benefit to the government that has provided those entitlements may not accrue as much as standing out and providing something physical in their hands or cash in their accounts. And the political benefits may then prompt governments to go the route of these freebies or revenues.
Well, I think that journey towards freebies is not as simple as what we are trying to argue here. I think freebies have got a certain purchase from the political parties, not just the ruling party at the center, but also in various regional parties across the country.
Absolutely.
Now they are doing it because it's probably the easiest thing to do.
And it's harder to do real solutions and
you will
real
remember,
reforms.
You will remember that in one of the states they used to be given television sets. In one of the states, they were giving a computer or a laptop or a desktop, something like that. Now, does it really address the question that you are raising is so important? Is that does it really provide the citizen of this country a facility or a benefit to lead a decent, socially and economically secure life? No, it's a stopgap arrangement. It provides you welfare in a certain areas.
And they also like to quote these numbers, millions, X number of millions covered under this scheme. So they focus more on the wider coverage of it instead of focusing on the adequacy of the welfare being provided.
Yeah.
Isn't that the flip
Absolutely.
side?
I think there is no doubt that we need to focus more on developmental projects across the country, and it is not just the center. The states have an equal role to play there. This tendency to go in for whether through cash transfer or other schemes, just provide cash or other facilities is not going to be a long-term solution and a sustainable solution for making the citizens lead a socially secure life.
AKB, has India built a world-class welfare delivery machine rather than building a world-class welfare state?
I think we have built a decent welfare delivery machine, particularly through cash. I don't think we have been able to build a welfare state, because a welfare state would imply that every child has the basic access to not just social security but also to education, healthcare, and proper infrastructure. So I don't think we have been able to achieve that. It has definitely provided a good, largely foolproof system of transferring benefits to people.
AKB, it's very tempting to debate philosophy and anecdotes related to welfare, but let's talk about the real factor here, which is money. If the government has 100 rupees to spend, how much of it is actually discretionary?
Not much. If you, and I would imagine I will give you some numbers for the center, and my sense is that broadly that pattern is valid even the states also.
Yes.
Uh, the center as well as the states are hugely indebted. So almost a fifth of the money, 100 rupees that they have, actually goes out to making interest payments
Yes.
and repayment of your debt to RBI or to the markets or whatever. For the center, another 22% goes for sharing the revenues with the states. So almost half so a very tiny portion of around maybe 15 to 20% is left, which is, then there is about 11 rupees for defense. So if you look at all those so for developmental needs, for building schools, building educational institutions, infrastructure, healthcare, there is very little left. And that is a challenge not which any government has created. Successive governments have really created and not really resolved it. Today you have a situation where the bulk of your resources are already tied up in an obligatory nature of sorts. So unless you find a more sort of radical fix, you say I will allocate whatever little money that I have got for X, Y, Z, you do that. But even if with that you give food subsidy, or let us say fertilizer subsidy, now that goes into benefiting a few farmers or 833 million Indians who don't really need that free food. Many of them will not need the free food. So there is an issue there where the money that is available with the center and that too with the states, not much of it is free from obligatory expenditure.
Is capex revival actually competing with welfare, or is that a false binary?
I think it is a false binary. I think in some ways the capex revival is can help creating sustainable infrastructure in many areas,
Which leads to
which leads
productivity
to productivity
enhancement.
enhancement. So I think it's a good idea. The only problem is that what kind of capex is that? Is it providing equity to companies which are loss making, or is it actual new investment in facilities that create jobs? So therefore, it's very important to target once again your capex expenditure to projects, schemes that create jobs, that sustains the growth of the Indian economy.
Governments can argue and talk about the nominal rupee value of spends on healthcare and education. But do you think as India has become richer, the allocation towards education and healthcare has become as ambitious as probably the economy was becoming? Or you think the economy has more or less outrun the social sectors?
I mean, I will tell you, if you look at India's public finances journey, uh, uh, from 1947 to now, what you are doing is that increasingly uh, your the bulk of your expenditure is already has to be allocated for what I call the committed expenditure. If you want to build more roads, the government is now willingly inclined to have a public-private partnership, or even allow the private sector players to come and build roads and maybe put them on toll. Now, when you are having toll roads, uh, once again, the concept of a welfare state is being not violated, but to my mind, it is being undermined. Because what is a toll road? A toll road is a special enclave of people who are willing to pay that extra money for having a decent road. But what happens to an ordinary citizen's right to have a proper decent road? Now, has that been compromised? So the government's inability to allocate more resources for building infrastructure and because of the reason that I cited, has actually meant a creation or the advent of a non-welfare state, wherein you when you go out of Delhi, you will see that how the local villagers feel completely constrained by the fact that there is a toll road, and they see a very decent metal road, and next to that is a road that is not even worth driving your cycle on. So, are you in the process creating two states? So, I think this is the big challenge when the government system is constrained by its own financial commitments to repaying the loans up to the 20%, 11% of defense, 22% goes to the state share revenue. So what is left with you? Not much. So you start getting into these deals. Now
So,
that deal undermines the welfarist approach of the government.
so maybe we've been looking at just one part of, let's say, welfare budget. We've been focusing more on the union or the center. What about the states? Because the states are the ones which are going to provide that last metal road leading to the village, the final mile.
Yeah.
Um, how are states placed here? Do they have the fiscal wherewithal to be able to provide this
No,
welfare?
no, no, no way. The states are in a far worse state than even the center. I mean, you will remember that Atal Bihari Vajpayee started this Pradhan Mantri's rural Sadak Yojana, Gramin Sadak Yojana. Now it is a central scheme. Maybe it's a 60-40 scheme, but the center is doing it. The states don't have the money. So they will come in and chip in their share, and then they will start doing it. So therefore, I think the states are also financially in a bad situation. See, Ankur, the real challenge is how you make the state machinery fiscally more strong. If you can make them fiscally more strong, then only you will have the resources to build facilities for all citizens and the kind of system that protects a citizen that you raised. So, the heart of the problem, in my view, is how do you make sure that your state is fiscally strong? Today, the states, whether they are center or the state, center is probably slightly better, are not fiscally strong. They are fiscally weak entities. And as long as they continue to remain weak, I don't think the states will have the resources and the wherewithal to spend money in in empowering the citizen and their rights to live in a society where they can get what is due to them.
Has this created a kind of fault line in the country as well between, let's say, the North versus the South? The South may have a grouse against the North because whatever resources are allocated to the states in the North are allocated more because of their population sizes. And the states in the South will say that, they're not fiscally prudent, the states in the North, and that might be a problem.
I don't think that is categorization of South and North in terms of welfare scheme will be correct, because I do see that a lot of southern states are indulging in similar welfare schemes, even though many of the southern states are fiscally not in a very better situation than the northern states. I think it is a national problem where states are not fiscally strong. Therefore, they go in for the easier options, cheaper options, which is create a welfare scheme, a freebie of sorts, and then win the elections, and then you move on.
It could be, there could be a number of schemes, and there could be budgetary tables and money allocated to different schemes, etc. But let's move to the final part of this conversation, which is focused more on the citizen. Let's assume there is a 35-year-old man who's married, who has a kid, and one day he loses his job. Instead of talking about the schemes that may exist, what is the realistic protection that he can count on from the Indian state?
Today, very limited. He may get if he's let's say he loses his job, he gets some retrenchment benefits, whether it is the private sector or whether it is the public sector. And then he has nothing to really fall back on except his maybe EPF deposits. So I don't think we have been able, and this is mind you 8 years after independence, we haven't really got a system by which every citizen has a decent social security for themselves.
And this person might have a kid as well. So what does the state actually guarantee in terms of, let's say, maternity benefits or child care, especially in a situation where the person actually lost his income?
On paper, there are, on hospital centers, primary health cares, but if you look at their conditions, by and large, those primary healthcare centers are poorly attended by healthcare officials. Doctors are not to be seen or to be available there. So I think that system is creaking, in my view.
So basically, a poor person, or let's say a low middle class person, may be one major illness away from abject poverty here, because let's say health insurance might take care of the hospital bills, but what about the other risks or losses that the person suffers?
There are studies which show that the impoverishment of an Indian after an illness is huge. Yes, we have got the health insurance scheme, Arogya scheme. It has helped many people, the 5 lakh insurance. Impoverishment of people because of the illness they have to contend with. is less now. But is that providing total social security? No, I don't think so.
And now this is one person who is working who might have had a job in a factory. But let's look at the technology risk here as well. Suppose a working individual who has been earning well is suddenly losing his job because of the advent of AI. What kind of protections can the state provide because of this kind of technological displacement?
You have to wait for the government to come up with some schemes in this regard. Well, so far, AI taking away jobs, the person has no fallback, just simply no fallback.
Uh, if I lose my job tomorrow, does the state owe me a benefit or does it owe me security?
Well, theoretically, yeah, it should owe you both benefit and security. But right now, there are some benefits, but security is a larger concept. And I don't think you have that, whether it's called the economic security or any other security. That's very, very limited.
If there was to be a test of the welfare state, should it be on the number of benefits that it claims to provide, or how often can it prevent people from absolute destitution when something goes wrong?
Well, if there is I think that's the second one is the right test. In my view, if I'm without a job, I have no income, do I get the state to help me meet both ends meet?
AKB, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for watching. India has become extraordinarily good at identifying beneficiaries, transferring money, and delivering support at enormous scale. That is real state capacity. But today's conversation raises a harder question. Welfare is ultimately tested not when life is going well, but when a job disappears, illness strikes, disability prevents work, or old age arrives without savings. The difference between reaching a citizen and protecting a citizen may be the difference between delivering welfare and building social security. You can transfer purchasing power into someone's bank account, you cannot transfer a functioning state into it. So perhaps the question is not simply how much welfare India provides, it is what the Indian state should reasonably protect its citizens against. Does it owe you a benefit or does it owe you security? I am Ankur Bhardwaj. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in 2 weeks on Macro Matters.